In a high-stakes confrontation that echoed through the hallowed halls of the United States Senate, Director Kash Patel stood his ground against the relentless questioning of Senator Hirono regarding the fundamental restructuring of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The atmosphere remained thick with ideological tension as Senator Hirono scrutinized the sweeping personnel transformations and the decisive removal of entrenched legacy leaders from the upper echelons of the agency. Mr. Patel steadfastly defended these strategic maneuvers as an absolute necessity for upholding the originalist interpretation of constitutional standards and restoring the rule of law. Throughout this rigorous exchange, the director deliberately withheld granular data points regarding specific staffing metrics or the identities of newly minted officials who had stepped up to serve. He pointedly characterized the senator's line of inquiry as a transparent attempt to manufacture political soundbites rather than a genuine effort to understand the administrative revitalization currently underway. The discourse eventually pivoted toward the bold decision to reallocate specialized field agents to the front lines of the southern border for rigorous immigration enforcement duties. This shift reflects a broader mandate to prioritize national sovereignty and public safety over the bureaucratic inertia that has long plagued the federal law enforcement apparatus. Furthermore, the committee delved into the implementation of heightened physical fitness requirements for incoming recruits, a move designed to ensure that the rank and file remain elite and mission-ready. The heated back and forth served to illuminate the profound political schism regarding Mr. Patel's unwavering alignment with the president's reformist agenda versus his critics' skepticism. Ultimately, the session underscored a monumental clash between a vision for a revitalized, accountable agency and the entrenched interests of a nonpartisan mission that many conservatives believe has been compromised. The American people are witnessing a pivotal moment where the very soul of federal law enforcement is being debated in the light of day. For far too long, the corridors of power in Washington have been insulated from the common-sense expectations of the citizens who fund these massive government institutions. Director Patel's appearance before the Senate Judiciary Committee was not merely a routine oversight hearing but a battle for the integrity of our constitutional republic. Every word exchanged between the director and his detractors serves as a testament to the ideological war currently being waged over the future of American justice. This is a struggle to ensure that no agency, regardless of its history, becomes an untouchable entity above the will of the people's elected representatives. Senator Hirono's line of questioning often felt like a remnant of a bygone era where the status quo was protected at all costs by the political elite. By challenging the removal of senior leadership, she essentially advocated for the preservation of a system that many feel has lost its way in recent years. Mr. Patel's refusal to engage in the minutiae of personnel names was a calculated defense against the potential doxing and harassment of career professionals dedicated to reform. He understood that in the current political climate, providing a list of names to a hostile committee is akin to painting a target on the backs of patriots. His focus remained squarely on the macro-level mission of purging the Bureau of the politicized elements that have tarnished its once sterling reputation for impartiality. The reallocation of resources to the border is perhaps the most significant departure from previous administrations' hands-off approach to the ongoing crisis. By taking highly trained agents out of comfortable office settings and placing them in the heat of the enforcement zone, the administration is making a clear statement about its priorities. This move signals an end to the era of performative law enforcement, where statistics were padded while the border remained a porous gateway for illegal activity. It is a pragmatic application of force and expertise to solve the most pressing national security threat facing the United States today. Critics call it a distraction, but those who value the sanctity of the border see it as a long overdue correction of a failed policy. Regarding the physical standards of the FBI, the argument for excellence has never been more critical in an age of evolving domestic and foreign threats. The expectation that an agent of the law should be in peak physical condition is not a radical notion. It is a basic requirement for the safety of the public. Mr. Patel's insistence on these rigors is a direct rebuttal to the trend of lowering standards in the name of administrative convenience or social engineering. By returning to a culture of meritocracy and physical prowess, the agency aims to attract individuals who are truly committed to the grueling demands of the job. This is about building a force that is as formidable in action as it is intellectually capable in the courtroom or the interrogation room. The tension in the room reached a crescendo when the topic of loyalty was raised, a common trope used by those who fear strong executive leadership. To the supporters of the administration, this is not about blind fealty to a man, but a shared commitment to a set of principles that place the American citizen first. Mr. Patel has demonstrated that his primary allegiance is to the Constitution, which grants the President the authority to manage the executive branch as he sees fit. The notion that the FBI should operate as a fourth branch of government, unaccountable to the chief executive, is a concept that conservatives have long rejected. This hearing was a clarifying moment for anyone who believes that the voters' mandate should actually mean something when it comes to the federal bureaucracy. As we look deeper into the transcripts of this hearing, we see a pattern of resistance from the established order against any form of meaningful change. The pushback from the senatorial side was not just about policy. It was about the fear of losing influence over an agency that has been used as a tool for far too long. Mr. Patel's calm demeanor in the face of such hostility is a blueprint for how conservative leaders must navigate the swamp of Washington politics. He didn't blink, he didn't falter, and he didn't give an inch to those who would see the reform efforts fail before they truly began. This is the kind of leadership that is required to dismantle the deep state and return the power to the rightful hands of the American people. The debate over the FBI's mission will likely continue to dominate the headlines as the administration pushes forward with its aggressive agenda for renewal. It is a mission that requires both a scalpel and a sledgehammer, the scalpel to carefully remove the rot, and the sledgehammer to break down the walls of secrecy. Every agent reassigned and every policy updated is a step toward a more transparent and effective law enforcement body that serves everyone equally. We must remain vigilant and supportive of those who are willing to take the arrows from the media and the opposition for the sake of the country. The path to reform is never easy, but as this hearing proved, it is a path that must be walked if we are to preserve our liberties. The relentless pursuit of accountability within our federal institutions represents the cornerstone of the current administration's mandate to restore the integrity of the American justice system. During the ongoing interrogation by the Senate, Director Kash Patel emphasized that the restructuring of the Bureau is not merely an exercise in bureaucratic reshuffling but a necessary purge of partisan bias. Senator Hirono's pointed questions regarding the departure of veteran officials failed to acknowledge the growing public distrust in an agency that many believe has been weaponized against the very people it is sworn to protect. Mr. Patel's defense centered on the premise that the preservation of constitutional standards requires a leadership team that is fully committed to the rule of law rather than the preservation of their own careers. By removing those who have overseen years of controversial investigations, the director is signaling a clean break from a troubled past that has left the FBI's reputation in tatters. The refusal to divulge specific personnel data during the hearing was a masterclass in operational security and executive discretion in the face of political theater. Mr. Patel understands that the radical left often uses such information to launch coordinated media campaigns intended to intimidate and silence reformers who dare to challenge the status quo. His insistence that the senator was seeking gotcha moments rather than substantive policy discussion highlighted the performative nature of the opposition's oversight efforts. For the American patriot, this obstructionism from the Senate is seen as a desperate attempt to protect an elite class of bureaucrats who have operated without oversight for decades. The director's primary responsibility is to the mission of the agency and the safety of his staff, not to satisfy the curiosity of those looking to derail the president's agenda. A significant portion of the debate focused on the strategic deployment of agents to the southern border, a move that underscores the administration's commitment to national security. While critics in the Senate suggest this weakens the Bureau's traditional investigative capabilities, supporters argue that there is no greater threat to American stability than the collapse of our borders. Reassigning specialists to assist in immigration enforcement is a pragmatic response to a crisis that has been ignored by the Washington establishment for far too long. This policy shift demonstrates a flexibility that is often lacking in federal agencies, proving that the Bureau can adapt to the most urgent needs of the nation. It is a bold statement that the protection of the American people starts with the physical security of our territory and the enforcement of our existing laws. The introduction of more demanding physical fitness standards for new recruits serves as a metaphor for the broader revitalization of the agency's culture. In recent years, there has been a concerning trend toward prioritizing administrative box-checking over the rugged, boots-on-the-ground capability that defines elite law enforcement. By raising the bar for entry, the administration is ensuring that the next generation of agents is physically and mentally prepared for the rigors of modern policing. This is not about exclusion, but about excellence and the restoration of a culture of merit that values performance above all else. A fit and disciplined force is essential for maintaining the respect and effectiveness of federal law enforcement in a world that is increasingly hostile to the American way of life. The political clash over Mr. Patel's perceived loyalty to the president is a fundamental misunderstanding of the executive branch's role in our republic. Under Article 2 of the Constitution, the president is granted the authority to direct the operations of the executive departments, including the FBI, to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed. The idea that an agency should be independent to the point of being unaccountable to the elected leader of the country is a dangerous departure from our founding principles. Mr. Patel's alignment with the President's vision is a sign of a functioning government where the people's choice at the ballot box is reflected in the actions of the bureaucracy. This debate is a clear illustration of the divide between those who believe in a sovereign people and those who believe in a sovereign permanent state. The critics of this reform effort often hide behind the term nonpartisan to shield themselves from legitimate scrutiny of their past failures. When the FBI is used to surveil political campaigns or target parents at school board meetings, the claim of being nonpartisan becomes a hollow excuse for bad behavior. Director Patel is tasked with the monumental job of ensuring that such abuses of power never happen again, which requires a complete overhaul of the agency's internal culture. The resistance from the Senate is a natural reaction from an establishment that has grown comfortable with an agency that shares its political sensibilities. However, the American public has made it clear that they are no longer willing to accept a two-tiered system of justice that favors the well-connected. The re-evaluation of high-level positions within the Bureau is a direct response to the demands for transparency that have been building for years. For too long, senior officials have been able to hide behind classified labels and redacted documents to avoid answering for their decisions. By bringing in new leadership, the administration is attempting to pull back the curtain on the internal mechanics of federal law enforcement. This transparency is essential for rebuilding the trust that is necessary for any police agency to function effectively in a free society. Mr. Patel's firm stance during the hearing was a reminder that the era of business as usual in Washington has come to a definitive and necessary end. The debate over the FBI's future is essentially a debate over the future of the American Republic itself. Do we want a government that is accountable to the citizens through their elected representatives? Or do we want a government run by unelected experts who believe they know what is best for us? The actions taken by Director Patel are a bold assertion of the former, placing the power back where it belongs, with the people. Every policy change, from personnel shifts to fitness requirements, is a building block in a more robust and responsive federal government. Those who oppose these changes are often the same voices that have overseen the decline of our national institutions over the last several decades. As the administration continues to push forward with its agenda, the pushback from the media and the opposition will likely intensify. They will frame every common-sense reform as an attack on democracy, while ignoring the actual erosion of democratic norms that occurred under previous leadership. Director Patel's ability to withstand this pressure and remain focused on the mission is a testament to his character and his commitment to the country. The American people are looking for leaders who are not afraid to fight for what is right, even when it means going against the grain of the Washington elite. This hearing was just one chapter in a much larger story of national renewal and the restoration of the American dream through the lens of justice and order. The focus on immigration enforcement is not just a policy choice. It is a moral imperative for any government that takes its duty to protect its citizens seriously. By moving agents to the border, the administration is addressing the root cause of many domestic issues, from drug trafficking to human exploitation. This proactive approach is a significant improvement over the reactive strategies of the past, which often waited for problems to reach our cities before taking action. It shows a strategic vision that understands the interconnectedness of border security and domestic safety. The critics who complain about the loss of resources are often the same ones who have fought against any meaningful border security measures for years. The emphasis on physical standards also reflects a return to the roots of what made the FBI an admired institution in its early days. It is a rejection of the participation trophy mentality that has seeped into so many aspects of American life, including our most sensitive national security agencies. Excellence should be the minimum requirement for those who carry a badge and a gun on behalf of the United States. By demanding more from recruits, the director is signaling that the privilege of serving in the Bureau must be earned through hard work and dedication. This approach will ultimately lead to a more capable and respected force that can handle the challenges of the 21st century with confidence and skill. The discussion about loyalty often misses the point that the most important loyalty is to the American people and the Constitution they established. When the director supports the president's agenda, he is supporting the platform that the majority of voters chose to implement. This is the essence of democratic accountability, ensuring that the government's actions reflect the will of the people. The attempt to paint this as something nefarious is a tactic used by those who have lost the political argument and are now trying to win through bureaucratic sabotage. Mr. Patel's performance in the Senate was a clear signal that he will not be deterred by these tactics and will continue to work toward the goals set by the Commander-in-Chief. The ideological divide highlighted in the hearing is not going away anytime soon, as it represents two fundamentally different visions for the country. One vision sees a powerful, self-sustaining bureaucracy that operates independently of the political process, while the other sees a streamlined government that is directly accountable to the citizens. The supporters of the Republican platform believe that only through the latter can we ensure the preservation of our liberties and the success of our nation. Director Patel is at the forefront of this battle, and his actions at the FBI will have long-lasting implications for the structure of the federal government. This is a fight worth having, and it is a fight that the American people are increasingly engaged in as they see the results of these reforms. Ultimately, the goal of these changes is to create an FBI that is beyond reproach, an agency that focuses solely on the impartial enforcement of the law. By stripping away the layers of political interference that have accumulated over the years, the administration is creating space for true professionalism to flourish. This requires a strong hand at the helm and a willingness to make difficult decisions that will not always be popular with the media or the entrenched interests in Washington. Director Patel has shown that he possesses both the vision and the fortitude to see this through to the end. The confrontation in the Senate was just a reminder of the obstacles that lie ahead, but it also served as a validation of the necessity of the mission. The strategic recalibration of the nation's premier law enforcement agency is a direct response to a decade of perceived overreach and a departure from its core mission. As Director Kash Patel continued his testimony, it became increasingly evident that the administration is no longer interested in maintaining a facade of cooperation with a legislative body they view as fundamentally hostile to reform. Senator Hirono's scrutiny of the internal restructuring was met with a resolute defense of executive authority, a principle that has become a rallying cry for those wishing to dismantle the administrative state. The removal of senior officials is framed not as a political purge, but as a long overdue cleaning of a house that has been plagued by leaks and ideological gatekeeping. This decisive leadership is what many voters demanded when they called for a fundamental change in how Washington operates. Mr. Patel's refusal to engage in the specifics of personnel shifts is a tactical stance rooted in the belief that the executive branch must maintain its own internal discipline without constant interference. By challenging the senator's focus on names and numbers, the director effectively redirected the conversation toward the broader successes of the agency's new direction. He argued that the true measure of the Bureau's effectiveness lies not in the comfort of its senior staff, but in its ability to protect the American public from actual threats. The heated exchanges underscored a growing resentment toward a Washington culture that prioritizes the job security of bureaucrats over the safety of the citizens they serve. This confrontation serves as a microcosm of the larger struggle to redefine the boundaries of power between the branches of government. The transition of resources toward the southern border represents a paradigm shift in how federal law enforcement views its primary responsibilities. For years, the Bureau has been criticized for being too focused on domestic political disagreements while the territorial integrity of the country was being compromised. By moving agents into the field to support border security, the administration is making a bold statement that national sovereignty is the foundation of all other legal protections. This move is a rejection of the globalist perspective that views borders as mere suggestions rather than enforceable lines of defense for the nation-state. The director's defense of this policy was a clear signal that the agency's priorities are now aligned with the survival and prosperity of the American people. The focus on physical rigor for new recruits is more than just a policy change. It is an attempt to restore the identity of the FBI as an elite fighting force. In an era where many institutions are lowering standards to meet social or political goals, the Bureau's return to traditional fitness requirements is a refreshing embrace of excellence. This policy ensures that every agent who steps into the field is capable of handling the physical demands of high-stakes arrests and dangerous operations. It is an investment in the individual agent's safety and the overall effectiveness of the organization in the face of violent crime and foreign intelligence threats. By demanding more from those who seek to wear the badge, the director is rebuilding a culture of pride and professional dominance. The debate over political loyalty versus agency independence is a distraction from the reality that every federal agency must be accountable to the people's elected leader. The critics who suggest that Mr. Patel's commitment to the president is a liability, often the same individuals who supported the use of the agency to target their political opponents in the past. To the supporters of the administration, this loyalty is seen as a necessary alignment to ensure that the reformist mandate is actually carried out. Without a leadership team that shares the president's vision, the permanent bureaucracy would simply wait out the clock, preventing any meaningful change from ever taking place. This alignment is the only way to ensure that the deep state is held accountable to the voters who feel ignored by the coastal elites. The tension during the hearing also highlighted the growing divide between the legislative branch's desire for control and the executive's need for operational efficiency. Senator Hirono's questions were viewed by many observers as an attempt to micromanage the day-to-day operations of an agency that requires decisive leadership. Mr. Patel's pushback was a necessary assertion of the president's constitutional role as the head of the executive branch. This dynamic is central to the ongoing debate about the size and scope of the federal government and the degree to which it should be responsive to the political process. For those who value a streamlined and efficient government, the director's performance was an encouraging sign of a new era of executive strength. The transparency that the administration is striving for is not about providing political ammunition to its critics, but about being honest with the American public. By acknowledging the failures of the past and taking concrete steps to fix them, Director Patel is attempting to restore a level of trust that has been missing for a long time. This process involves making difficult choices that disrupt the comfortable lives of career officials who have become accustomed to operating without scrutiny. The resistance from the Senate is a predictable response to a movement that threatens the established order of power in Washington. However, the momentum for reform appears to be growing as more citizens become aware of the extent to which their institutions have been politicized. The redirection of the FBI's mission back to its constitutional roots is the ultimate goal of the current leadership team. This means focusing on core law enforcement duties such as counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and the dismantling of major criminal organizations. It also means ending the practice of using federal resources to investigate private citizens for their political or religious beliefs. The director's testimony made it clear that the agency is undergoing a profound transformation that will move it away from being a political tool and back to being a defender of the law. This shift is essential for the long-term health of our democracy, as it ensures that the power of the federal government is never again used to suppress dissent. As we analyze the impact of these changes, it is important to remember that the opposition will use every tool at their disposal to slow down the process of reform. They will leak stories to the media, use congressional hearings to create controversy, and attempt to tie up the administration in endless legal challenges. Director Patel's steadfastness in the face of these attacks is a testament to his belief in the necessity of the mission. He understands that the stakes are nothing less than the preservation of the constitutional order and the restoration of the American people's faith in the government. The battle for the FBI is a battle for the very heart of the country, and it is a battle that the administration is determined to win. The emphasis on meritocracy and physical standards within the Bureau is a direct challenge to the modern trend of institutional decay. By prioritizing competence over compliance with social agendas, the director is ensuring that the FBI remains a world-class organization. This return to basics is what will allow the agency to successfully navigate the complex challenges of the future, from cyber warfare to transnational crime. It is a vision of law enforcement that is both traditional in its values and modern in its capabilities. The supporters of this approach see it as a vital step in reversing the decline of American institutions and ensuring that the United States remains a leader in global security. The ongoing struggle over the Bureau's identity also reflects a larger cultural conflict within the United States. On one side are those who believe in a strong, centralized government run by a professional class of experts. On the other side are those who believe in a limited government that is directly accountable to the citizens and their elected representatives. Mr. Patel's leadership represents the latter view, and his actions are a direct manifestation of the populist movement that has transformed American politics in recent years. This movement seeks to empower the individual and the local community by reducing the influence of the federal bureaucracy. The hearing was a clear indication that this conflict is far from over and will continue to shape the political landscape for years to come. Ultimately, the success of the director's reforms will be judged by the results they produce in terms of public safety and institutional integrity. If the FBI can become a more focused, effective, and transparent agency, it will be a significant victory for the American people. The path forward is difficult, but the alternative, allowing the agency to continue down its current path of politicization, is unacceptable. The confrontation in the Senate was a necessary part of this process, as it forced a public discussion about the future of federal law enforcement. It showed that there are leaders who are willing to stand up to the pressure of the establishment and fight for a government that truly serves the people. The reallocation of resources to the border is a tangible example of this new priority system in action. It is a move that has immediate benefits for the security of American communities and sends a clear message to the world that our laws will be enforced. The Director's ability to defend this policy against the criticisms of the Senate highlights his commitment to a security-first approach to governance. This is the kind of bold action that the American public has been waiting for, and it is a sign that the administration is serious about tackling the most pressing issues facing the nation. The fight for a better FBI is just getting started, and the results will be felt for generations to come. The relentless defense of the administrative status quo by the political establishment serves only to highlight the necessity of the radical transparency being championed by the current leadership. As the hearing progressed, the chasm between the vision of Director Kash Patel and the traditionalist views of Senator Hirono became a flashpoint for a national conversation on the purpose of federal power. The Director's refusal to allow the Senate to dictate the internal management of the Bureau is a strategic assertion of executive independence from legislative overreach. By focusing on the removal of dead wood within the agency's leadership, the administration is effectively decapitating the ideological silos that have long dictated policy behind closed doors. This is a battle for the soul of the executive branch, ensuring that it remains a tool for justice rather than a weapon for political retribution. Every agent moved to the border and every policy updated to reflect rigorous physical standards is a victory for those who believe in a lean, mean, and mission-focused federal government. The critics who suggest that these moves are purely symbolic fail to grasp the operational impact of having a workforce that is both mobile and physically capable of high-intensity enforcement. Director Patel's commitment to these standards is a direct rejection of the soft-on-crime and soft-on-security approach that has characterized previous administrations. This is about restoring the G-man image, the elite, untouchable investigator who is beholden only to the law and the mission. By purging the Bureau of its bureaucratic bloat, the administration is creating a more responsive and effective force that can tackle the actual criminals threatening our streets. The debate over the identity of newly appointed officials is a red herring designed to distract from the substantive reforms taking place within the FBI's regional offices. Mr. Patel's stance that the senator was seeking to create a list for political harassment is a sober acknowledgement of the modern political climate. In an era of cancel culture and doxing, protecting the identities of those who are working to dismantle the deep state is a matter of both personal safety and national security. The Director's primary loyalty remains with the American people who voted for change, not with the committee members who seek to preserve their own influence. This hearing demonstrated that the days of the FBI being a protected playground for the Washington elite are coming to a swift and justified end. The ideological struggle witnessed in the Senate is a reflection of a country that is tired of being lied to by its institutions. For years, the FBI has asked for the benefit of the doubt while being involved in some of the most controversial and partisan investigations in American history. Director Patel is the first leader in a generation who is willing to look the establishment in the eye and say that enough is enough. His focus on constitutional standards is not just rhetoric. It is a roadmap for how the agency can begin to heal the wounds it has inflicted on the national psyche. By returning to the foundational principles of the Republic, the Bureau can once again become an organization that every American, regardless of their political affiliation, can respect. The strategic deployment of federal agents to the southern border is perhaps the most significant operational shift in the history of the modern FBI. This decision acknowledges that the greatest threat to American civil society is not a political ideology, but the lawlessness that results from an open and unmonitored border. By prioritizing the enforcement of immigration laws, the administration is addressing the fentanyl crisis, human trafficking, and the influx of foreign bad actors at their source. This is a common-sense application of federal resources that resonates with the millions of Americans living in communities ravaged by the effects of illegal migration. The director's unwavering support for this mission is a testament to his understanding of what it means to put America first. Furthermore, the emphasis on physical fitness for new recruits serves as a cultural reset for an agency that has become too comfortable in its office-bound roles. A law enforcement officer who is not in peak physical condition is a liability to themselves, their partners, and the public they serve. By reinstating these rigors, the director is signaling that the era of the armchair agent is over and the era of the active investigator has returned. This move filters out those who are looking for a comfortable government career and attracts those who are ready to put their lives on the line for their country. It is a return to a merit-based system where excellence is the only metric that matters, a stark contrast to the diversity-driven agendas of the past. The clash over loyalty to the president is a fundamental debate about the hierarchy of the American government. In our system, the president is the sole head of the executive branch, and all agencies within that branch are subordinate to his constitutional authority. To suggest that the FBI should be an independent entity that can ignore the president's policy directives is to suggest a system of government that is not found in the Constitution. Mr. Patel's alignment with the president is a sign of a healthy, functioning democracy where the executive branch acts with a single, unified purpose. Those who fear this alignment are often the same ones who benefited from a fragmented and unaccountable bureaucracy that they could control through back channels. The director's performance at the hearing also showcased a level of professional poise that is rarely seen in the face of such aggressive questioning. He did not allow himself to be baited into emotional responses, nor did he concede any ground on the administration's core principles. This level of discipline is exactly what is needed to steer a massive organization like the FBI through a period of intense transition. It sends a message to the rank-and-file agents that their leadership is strong, principled, and unwilling to buckle under political pressure. This creates a sense of stability and purpose that is essential for maintaining morale during a time of significant organizational change. The focus on the Phi Dang Phi, non-partisan, mission of the agency is often used as a shield by those who want to prevent any oversight or reform. When an agency has been as deeply involved in political controversies as the FBI has been, the claim of being non-partisan becomes difficult to maintain. Director Patel's approach is to acknowledge the reality of the situation and take the necessary steps to remove the bias that has infected the system. This requires a level of honesty and transparency that the previous leadership was unwilling to provide. By bringing the Bureau's operations back into alignment with the expectations of the American public, the director is doing more to protect its non-partisan future than any of his predecessors. The transition toward a more accountable and efficient FBI is not a project that can be completed overnight, but the hearing showed that the process is well underway. The removal of entrenched leaders and the reassignment of agents are just the first steps in a long-term strategy to rebuild the agency from the ground up. This is a generational task that requires the kind of bold vision and political courage that Director Patel has demonstrated. The pushback from the Senate and the media is merely a confirmation that the reforms are hitting their mark and that the old guard is beginning to lose its grip on power. The American people are ready for a new chapter in federal law enforcement, and this administration is delivering on that promise. The importance of the southern border cannot be overstated in the context of national security and the rule of law. Every agent sent to the border is a direct investment in the safety and sovereignty of the United States. This move challenges the notion that federal law enforcement should be focused primarily on domestic surveillance and brings the focus back to protecting the nation from external threats. It is a strategic pivot that recognizes the changing nature of the global landscape and the unique challenges facing the American people today. The director's ability to defend this shift in the face of intense criticism is a hallmark of his leadership and his commitment to the president's agenda. The cultural shift within the Bureau is also reflected in the new expectations for professional conduct and accountability. Under the new leadership, there is no room for the leaks and political maneuvering that have characterized the agency's recent history. Every member of the FBI is being held to a higher standard of integrity, with a clear understanding that their primary duty is to the Constitution and the American people. This return to core values is essential for restoring the agency's credibility and ensuring that it can effectively carry out its mission. Director Patel's firm hand is exactly what is needed to instill this sense of discipline and purpose throughout the organization. The debate over the future of the FBI is also a debate over the role of the expert class in American life. For too long, the country has been run by a group of unelected officials who believe that they are better suited to make decisions than the people's representatives. This administration is challenging that assumption by demanding that every agency be accountable to the voters through the president. This is a fundamental reassertion of democratic principles and a rejection of the technocratic rule that has dominated Washington for decades. The hearing was a clear demonstration that the era of the untouchable bureaucrat is coming to an end. In conclusion, the confrontation between Director Patel and Senator Hirono was a pivotal moment in the ongoing battle for the future of the American government. It highlighted the deep divisions within the country and the starkly different visions for the role of federal law enforcement. While the opposition continues to cling to the failed policies of the past, the administration is forging ahead with a bold plan for renewal and accountability. The reforms being implemented today will ensure that the FBI remains a powerful and effective defender of American liberties for years to come. The director's unwavering commitment to this mission is a sign of hope for everyone who believes in the greatness of the American Republic and the importance of the rule of law. The final moments of the Senate hearing served as a definitive exclamation point on the administration's broader philosophy of governance and institutional reform. Director Kash Patel's closing arguments were not just a defense of his specific actions at the FBI, but a manifesto for a new era of American law enforcement that is unapologetically focused on national interests. Senator Hirono's persistent skepticism was ultimately framed as a stubborn refusal to accept the results of a democratic mandate that demanded the dismantling of the deep state architecture. This clash represented the terminal point of the old Washington consensus, where agencies were allowed to operate as self-governing fiefdoms far removed from the oversight of the American taxpayer. The director's steadfast refusal to yield on matters of executive prerogative has set a new standard for how conservative leaders must engage with a hostile legislative establishment moving forward. The debate over the FBI's mission has now been laid bare for the entire country to see, revealing a fundamental choice between a politicized past and a principled future. By prioritizing the removal of career bureaucrats who have overseen years of systemic failure, the administration is clearing the path for a new generation of patriots who understand the gravity of their constitutional oath. This is not a transition that seeks to destroy the agency, but one that seeks to save it from its own worst impulses and the corrupting influence of partisan power. Director Patel's leadership is the catalyst for this transformation, providing the necessary willpower to overcome the institutional inertia that has stifled reform for decades. Every decision made under his tenure is a building block in a fortress of accountability that will protect the rights of citizens from federal overreach. The strategic pivot toward the southern border is more than just a temporary reallocation of manpower. It is a permanent shift in the Bureau's operational philosophy. It recognizes that in a globalized world, the distinction between foreign threats and domestic safety is increasingly blurred by the reality of porous borders and transnational criminal networks. By embedding federal agents into the enforcement framework of the border, the administration is treating the current crisis with the seriousness it deserves as a primary national security threat. This move challenges the elitist notion that the FBI should only be concerned with high-level white-collar crime or political investigations, while the sovereignty of the nation is under constant assault. The success of this policy will be measured in the lives saved from drug overdoses and the restoration of order in border communities that have been abandoned by the previous political class. Furthermore, the reinstitution of elite physical standards ensures that the FBI remains a prestige organization that values strength, discipline, and operational excellence above all else. This policy is a direct rebuke to the equity-focused mandates that have diluted the effectiveness of so many American institutions in recent years. By demanding that every recruit meet a high bar of physical prowess, the Bureau is signaling that its mission is not one for the faint of heart or the poorly prepared. It returns the agency to its roots as a premier investigative and enforcement body that is respected by allies and feared by adversaries alike. This culture of excellence is contagious, and it will eventually permeate every level of the organization, from the field offices to the headquarters in Washington. The accusations of political loyalty leveled against Mr. Patel are a cynical attempt to delegitimize the president's constitutional authority to lead the executive branch. In the Republican view, there is no higher form of nonpartisanship than a government that follows the law and the directives of the people's elected leader. When the Bureau operates in opposition to the president's agenda, it ceases to be a neutral arbiter of the law and becomes a political actor in its own right. The director's commitment to the president is a commitment to the democratic process itself, ensuring that the policies voters chose at the ballot box are the policies that are actually implemented. This alignment is the only way to break the cycle of bureaucratic sabotage that has plagued conservative administrations for the better part of a century. The transparency championed by the director during the hearing is a transparency of action and result, rather than a transparency of bureaucratic process designed to hide the truth. By refusing to provide names for political targets, he protected the integrity of the reform process and the individuals brave enough to carry it out. This is a level of protective leadership that has been missing from the upper ranks of federal law enforcement for far too long. It demonstrates that the administration is serious about creating an environment where agents can do their jobs without fear of being sacrificed to the political whims of a Senate committee. This build-up of trust between the leadership and the rank and file is essential for the long-term success of the Bureau's new mission. As the dust settles from this high-profile confrontation, it is clear that the battle for the FBI is far from over, but the momentum has shifted in favor of the reformers. The American people are increasingly aware of the need for a government that is responsive, efficient, and limited in its scope. The actions taken by Director Patel are a direct reflection of these values, and they provide a blueprint for how other agencies can be brought back into alignment with the Constitution. The resistance from the media and the political establishment will continue, but it will be met with an even stronger resolve from those who believe in the necessity of national renewal. This is a fight for the future of the Republic, and it is a fight that requires the kind of uncompromising leadership seen in the Senate chambers. The focus on the southern border and physical standards are not isolated policies, but part of a comprehensive strategy to restore the dignity of American citizenship and the rule of law. It is a strategy that rejects the managed decline of the nation and instead chooses to invest in the strengths that made America great in the first place. By focusing on the fundamentals of security, merit, and accountability, the administration is building a foundation for a prosperous and safe future for all citizens. The director's testimony was a powerful reminder that the government exists to serve the people, not the other way around. Every reform implemented is a step toward a more perfect union where the power is truly in the hands of the governed. The cultural war being waged within the halls of the FBI is a microcosm of the larger struggle for the identity of the United States in the 21st century. One side seeks a future where unelected experts and legacy bureaucrats manage every aspect of our lives from the safety of their Washington offices. The other side, the side represented by Director Patel and the Republican platform, seeks a future where the government is small, transparent, and strictly bound by the limits of the Constitution. This hearing was a clarifying moment that forced every observer to choose which side of history they want to be on. For those who value freedom and the rule of law, the choice is clear, and the path forward is one of bold and decisive reform. Ultimately, the legacy of this era of the FBI will be defined by its ability to transition from a tool of the establishment back to a defender of the people's liberties. The removal of those who have compromised the agency's integrity is a painful but necessary process that will ultimately lead to a stronger and more respected bureau. Director Patel's willingness to take the heat from his critics is a testament to his dedication to the country and his belief in the righteousness of his mission. He understands that real change is never easy and that the most important work often happens in the face of the greatest opposition. The American people are watching, and they are standing with those who are willing to fight for their rights and their security. The reorganization of federal law enforcement is a vital component of the administration's plan to restore the balance of power in Washington. By stripping away the layers of political insulation that have protected the FBI from oversight, the director is making the agency more responsive to the needs of the average citizen. This is a pro-democracy movement in its truest sense, as it seeks to return the power of the government to the people through their elected representatives. The clash in the Senate was not just about personnel or fitness standards. It was about the fundamental question of who rules in a constitutional republic. The answer, provided by the director's firm and principled stance, is that the people rule, and they must be respected by every federal employee. In the years to come, the reforms initiated during this period will be seen as the turning point that saved the FBI from total institutional collapse. By returning to the basics of law enforcement and constitutional adherence, the agency will regain the trust of the public and the respect of the world. The challenges ahead are significant, but with leaders like Kash Patel at the helm, the prospects for a successful outcome have never been higher. The fight for the soul of the FBI is a fight for the integrity of the American justice system, and it is a fight that must be won for the sake of future generations. The administration remains committed to this cause, and they will not rest until the Bureau is once again a beacon of justice and a symbol of American excellence. The reallocation of resources and the heightening of standards are the practical manifestations of a vision that puts the American citizen first in every decision. This is the hallmark of a government that is focused on results rather than rhetoric, and on safety rather than political correctness. The director's performance in the Senate served as a rallying cry for patriots across the country who are tired of seeing their institutions used against them. It was a moment of strength, clarity, and unyielding commitment to the principles that define our nation. As we move forward, we must continue to support these efforts to reclaim our government and restore the promise of the American dream through the lens of order, justice, and liberty for all. The final word on this hearing is one of optimism and determination, as it proved that even the most entrenched bureaucracies can be reformed when there is the political will to do so. The administration has shown that it is not afraid to challenge the status quo and that it will use every tool at its disposal to ensure that the federal government is accountable to the people. Director Patel's journey is just beginning, and the impact of his leadership will be felt for decades to come. The FBI is on a new path, a path of integrity, excellence, and constitutional fidelity, and there is no turning back. This is the dawn of a new era in American justice, and the future of the Republic is brighter because of the bold actions being taken today.